Thank you for joining us. This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Empke.
And you're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Special in-house guest today.
Yeah, newcomer.
What's going on, guys?
Joe Hager. How the hell are you?
I'm pretty good. How about
Man,
you guys?
you don't even introduce yourself with your own name. You let someone else do it. Dude, that's what's up.
That's when you know you're a baller.
I know.
You know?
Look at flat-billed hat, dude. I feel outnumbered.
Yeah, you are.
Man.
You are. All us people over 6 foot tall in here.
I'm giving you a dirty ass look right now. Dude, so real quick, so I'm doing my daughter's room, right? And I put this chart, a height chart in there. So like I'm like 5'7" on a good day. I'm like, oh. Maybe I move the chart, I drop it a little bit, like, dude, I'm 6 foot. What's up? So I feel so embarrassed.
Did you have to get a stool to stand on to put the height chart up for your toddler?
So it goes up. She's 3.5.
A toddler, right?
Right. So she, the chart goes up to 6 foot. So no one ever in the house will ever go there. And then there's another 6 inches above that where there's it's like her room's princess theme.
Yeah.
Of course. So yeah, 6.5 feet tall. So I was over my head like this with a drill gun drilling. So no, I didn't need a footstool. It would have helped.
That was riveting audio when you showed me how you had to stand visually.
Yeah, it was tough.
Okay. So that's kicking off today.
Yeah. Welcome to the dad life. All right. So anyways, Joe Hager, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about you guys?
Dude.
Hey, let's get him started right. Joe, you're first-time guest on the show, long-time listener. I don't know that. I'm just assuming.
Dude, him and his cousins. I just want to point out his cousins
for real?
Got me on Snapchat, right? They don't live far from us. They're over the border in Wisconsin. And they would always hit me up, ask me questions about the trucks, this and that. I didn't know that they were cousins and shit.
Yeah.
So one thing led to another. Me and Joe started, hanging out and things like that. His cousins came over. They're talking about the podcast. They're like into trucks. They both have Duramaxes and stuff. And well, on this podcast, like avid listeners. So that was really, really cool to see.
Was it also like everybody else who's ever quoted you back to yourself and you're like, I never said that.
No.
I never said that.
No, like they were more respectful than to bring up dumb shit.
Joe is our newest recruit over here at Duramax Tuner. Joined the team a month ago.
Yep, just about.
Yeah, just about a month, yeah. So Joe came on into our customer service role, which is like a really, really cool job here at Duramax Tuner where you kind of get to play shortstop for the team. You get to do a little bit of everything and help everyone. But when you came in, you already had an LML and an LB7.
Correct. Yep.
Which is probably the only reason you were hired.
Yep.
So
that's true. You're not smart.
Had too many Cummins guys.
Come on.
I was playing.
Too many Cummins and Fords guys floating around the parking lot. We needed to balance the team out. So now you're here. So we've done a little bit of talking and a whole lot of prep for today's recording. But before we dive into all that, I just want to ask you, how did you get started in diesel performance?
Okay, so pretty much when I was younger, I guess I could say like freshman in high school, I always had a passion for diesel trucks. So I wasn't really on a mindset on what I wanted. All I wanted was, just like any other kid, I wanted diesel. So my first purchase ended up being a 1997 7.3 Power Stroke.
Hell yeah.
I drove the shit out of that. Ended up having trans issues with that, so I ended up parking the truck, found another one at a dealership in Sycamore, went and purchased another 1997 Power Stroke. Ended up having, again, transmission issues with that, put a trans in it. I was just tired of it, man. I mean, 7.3s are great. They'll pull a damn house down, but you just ain't making power out of them. So at that point, I was like, I want a Duramax. I have to get one. Was searching on Craigslist, Facebook. Always looking, staying up super late at night. Got the itch. I need a truck. So I came across a 2003 LB7 out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. Truck had a decent amount of mods done to it. So that was my first introduction, I guess you could say, into the diesel world. On the more of the performance side, I guess I could say. Truck had, like I said, a decent amount of stuff done. Unfortunately, that truck was totaled. It was parked outside of a friend's house, and a drunk driver came around a corner and just completely annihilated the back half of it.
Oh, no.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Were you the driver?
No,
Chris?
you show me pictures. Right.
But
don't talk about that.
No, but yeah, I mean, I was ruined after that. I was like, I had the truck. It was rust-free. Pretty much everything that was done to it, I wanted. So that truck ended up, they gave me the option to buy it back or just sell it to insurance. Didn't really want to buy it back. There would have been way too much to fix on it. So I took the money that insurance offered me, Went ahead and found a 2006 LBZ regular cab long bed out of Janesville, Illinois. Went and bought that. I guess you could say a few months after that, I ended up bending a rod in the motor.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I like to get down. Yeah, I unfortunately bent a rod in that motor, sold that truck, and then waited probably around 5 months, man. And then I came across my LML. I found it on Facebook. Found that out of Oklahoma, flew down there with a buddy, and we went and picked it up, drove it back.
No shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I always love those like long distance travels. You've done that a few times for a vehicle, huh, Chris?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, you show up and you're like, man, I hope it was shitty pictures and a great truck.
Yeah.
Because if it's the other way around, I'm fucked.
Yep.
The only time I've personally been burnt on that, it was a 9-hour drive to go look at something, and we'll just leave it at that. Every other time, that was actually the last time I traveled, by the way. So, yeah, everything else is local.
Yeah, Nick sent me out into Indiana one time to go look at an LB7.
That Duramax.
Yeah, and we got a tow truck to drive out there, and then had to pay him both ways and not come home with a truck.
Shout out to First Class Towing for coming in clutch for us
Yeah.
all the time. God, the Castellanos brothers, man, there's something else.
They're right. They're right. But Joe, you brought this Oklahoma truck home. It already had a few mods on it. So walk me through it, man. What does this thing have done to it?
So originally, like I said, when I was looking for a truck, I wanted a truck with a big single. Had to have a big single and a built trans. So like I said, I found the truck. The truck had a S467.7, actually Duramax Tuner's first generation, non-VGT 67.7. The truck had that. It had the CP4 removed. They did the CP3 conversion. It's a Sportsman extra G pump. Truck had a stage 4 build transmission. I think those are for like 850 horsepower capable. They had that work done to it. I went ahead and purchased HSP Profab manifolds and up pipes for it. The truck currently, it had 2-inch up pipes on it already. I wanted the manifolds on it. I wanted to make it crackle a little bit more, I guess you could say. So I went ahead and added those. The truck also had a 5-inch exhaust straight pipe on it and a Fast 165 lift pump. So then pretty much got the truck home. Like I said, did the up pipes and manifolds on it. Went ahead and put on Rare Parts G2 tie rods because I wanted to do 4x4 launches and really get a lot of potential out of that truck.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, pretty much everything else is pretty much the same. I added Longhorn Fab traction bars to it, and that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got products from everybody here.
Yeah, and the one thing you didn't mention, just want to touch on, you have the WC Fab
yes.
high flow bundle on it.
Yes, sorry about that. I do have the WC Fab high flow bundle kit on it. Powder coated in Illusion Cherry. Really love how it looks.
I feel like except for the exhaust, like we would have sponsored this truck.
Yeah.
Just like this is like everybody who we love on the podcast is on here. Yeah. Okay. The XRG Sportsman CP3 or CP4?
CP3.
CP3.
Yep.
Awesome. I take it that's converted over with a WC Fab kit, including WC Fab intake bundle.
Correct.
Badass for LMLs. Yeah. If you can run those, you should. And then, of course, the Duramax Tuner Gen 1 Stealth 67.7. Now, this is a non-VGT charger based off an LB7 install originally-ish.
Yeah. So we had custom exhaust housings made and custom compressor housings poured and cut.
Yeah.
And it essentially fit a center section of a S467.7 with an 83 turbine. And to the listeners that are listening to this and are like, oh, we've never heard of this, this is the same turbocharger that we ran in our old regular cab drag truck.
Yep.
That's the same turbocharger that we've ran on Brett Kell's two-wheel drive shorty.
KDP.
Katie Pajeska's truck, her GMC LB7. We had one on our Apache Max for the longest time. The Duraburb was originally the test bed for that turbocharger. There's quite a few others that we've had in the mix. But we did stop that in favor of production of a couple different options of turbochargers. There are still a few circulating around. We shipped out a couple of them beginning of the year, middle of the year. So they're more or less like a unicorn. You know,
they really are, yeah.
They were, like, honest to God, one of the first Duramax drop-in, stock-appearing 800-wheel horse turbo turbos out there. So it was really cool to, be a part and see like Nick during the development of that. And I mean, they were home of some high horsepower trucks.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So you ended up with one of those by chance. How'd you feel about the truck when you first started driving it?
So when I first got it, when I first got, I guess I could say when we got to the bank, because I met the guy at the bank when I was buying the truck from him. I wanted the truck, you know what I mean? You're flying all the way to Oklahoma, you got to buy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we get to the bank or whatever, and the guy pulls up in it, and you could already hear it pulling up. Like, I didn't even see the truck yet, and I heard it, and I'm like, dude, I'm looking at my buddy, I'm like, man, I could hear the truck coming. Like, this thing sounds badass, dude. So we get the truck. First thing I did was pop the hood. I was getting, like, a good overview on everything. So the guy's like, let's go for a ride. I'm like, say less, man. Let's get in. So we get in the truck, start driving it. Immediately, you just hear it. It's not really a whistle. Anyone that knows non-VGT trucks knows how they sound. Yep. You know what I mean? That's what you go for, that crackling sound. So the truck immediately had that sound right away, and that's what I was hooked on, man. I mean, just the way the exhaust comes out and it's toned, it's just... It's something different. I mean, the only way I could really explain for someone to get a good idea on what it sounds like, just look it up, man. I mean, you'll see it here in the footage. I mean, it's a great sounding truck, dude. I mean, there's not much else I could ask for it, to be honest, from you,
Okay. Now, Joe, you don't tow a lot with the truck. It's mostly a daily driver. It's something to have a lot of fun with. You had never driven emissions-equipped trucks either. So.
Yeah, no, I've never. I mean, this was like a new world for me, just driving Mike's truck. It's definitely a change, you know what I mean?
We'll get into all of that.
I was going to say, we'll
get into that.
We'll dive into that. So what we're setting up here is Joe and Chris went out in the truck. They got a chance to drive it. Now, Chris, you have a lot of experience driving emissions-equipped, deleted trucks, all sorts of different older pieces of shit, newer pieces of shit. Just anytime we have something that nobody else wants to drive, we get Chris behind the wheel. No, I'm just kidding.
I buy a lot of them, too.
Right.
I've owned a lot of pieces of shit.
Yeah, none of our customer trucks that you've driven were pieces of shit. Those were all nice.
Those were all nice trucks.
Okay, but you have a lot of experience.
Yep.
So we sent you and Joe out to go drive the truck. We have audio from that. We're going to kick to that in just a minute. Real quick, set us up for this clip.
The truck drives very well for a Denali badged vehicle. Any of the newer Duramaxes, the LMLs, there's a specific driving characteristic that I think these trucks need to uphold. Okay. In my mindset, spool up, shift quality, throttle response, plushness of driving. And then I've upped the ante a little bit more because sound to me is a little more important. I'm getting into my 30s here soon, getting a little older. I do like the quietness. I'm not going to lie. I am getting older. But the truck drove very well. I mean, you could tell in Joe's enthusiasm as he was excited when he got the truck. The truck is nothing less than that. It's a beautiful truck. It's set up very well. And going into this, the comparison of what we were doing was to compare two trucks, similar year models, within somewhat of the same power range. We're talking about 50, 60 horsepower difference between, what we're getting into today.
Yeah.
But all in all, a couple little quirks that you'll see in the drive along that you're about to see, and that I noted, I guess you would say. But overall, nice truck.
Yeah. So if you're listening to the audio version of this, very soon or right now, depending on when you're listening, jump on the YouTube channel, Diesel Performance Podcast. We actually videotape the ride along. Yep. So we set up a couple of cameras. We sent you two jamokes out into the truck, let you guys swap. You guys both got to drive the truck.
Yep.
So we got some feedback there. And then when we're going to kick over to that audio now, and when we get back, we'll talk about the comparison truck that we also drove.
Cool.
All right, guys, so we're back. We played musical chairs or Chinese fire drill, if you will. I'm behind the driver's seat of this 2012 LML. I'm fond of these things. I've been around and been behind the wheel of a few of them at this point. And just initially, truck drive's really nice. The smoke is controllable. If you stab on it, there's a little bit of smoke. But turbocharger really does come to life well. The truck likes to live its life around 2,500, 3,000 RPM, just so the turbocharger, the truck can stay on top of the turbo. If you were to take RPMs and bring them lower as far as the shift points go, you end up falling underneath the turbocharger, and the turbo's never really able to come to life or allow the truck to get the boost pressure that's needed to keep the truck in a power band or a torque curve.
Yep.
But I mean, overall, we're cruising 1,500 RPM. It's doing well. Granted, there's no boost, but you know, it drives. If I were to roll into it and get on the throttle, floored, definitely a little smoke. Comes right to life. That was to 90 mile an hour, so that was about a 55 to a 90 mile an hour pull. Truck drives well. Now, two things I want to point out here is, number one, the truck is loud, okay? 5-inch exhaust, it's aggressive. I've mentioned that a couple times, but it drives really well. The flip side to this is you know, the turbocharger, it took a little while. I was floored, probably counted like 2 or 3 1,000 before the truck came to life. Now, for the way you use the truck, Joe, that really doesn't matter. Street truck, get in it, drive it. I always use that term, street truck, in a performance application. But, you know, if you were to ever tow, right, or hook up a trailer, it might not necessarily, you could do it, of course, but there's better options that might actually be out there.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Different
that.
variable vane options and things of that nature. But overall, I mean, it's a nice driver. I could see driving this thing. You know, you live in more of a congested area, more of like a city-based area, where stop-and-go traffic down some of those roads, it's not the worst thing.
No.
But getting up on the open road like this is, of course, going to be a little nicer.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot nicer when you hit an open road. You know, you can definitely hear that turbo scream,
Yep.
like you were saying.
The turbo's loud, too.
Yeah.
And you hear that thing in the cab. And that was one thing I wanted to point out, too, is these trucks, the ability to block out sound outside on these newer trucks versus the older ones. You know, Paul and I have been in a lot of trucks in the past where, man, our old Scottsdale or our Apache, you hear everything going on in that engine bay. Where this, I mean, you can hear the noise. I'm talking a little louder as the truck's higher in RPM. But, you know, all in all, I mean, it does a nice job to block everything. They've come a long way with these things.
Oh, yeah.
But, so you were saying earlier, you know, you had other goals that you might do, maybe some bigger fuel, bigger things like that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about maybe going back to like a different variable vane style or going bigger, or what does that look like?
So, all the work that I usually do to my trucks, I usually do it between me and my 2 cousins, Matt and Tim. They've been very helpful with me throughout the years of all the trucks. My cousin Matt, he's been the one that's he's kind of on my side with more things. Like, I'm more of a fixed vane type guy.
Okay.
Now, where I have, you know, Matt's over here trying to push, you know, let's do a VVT setup. The truck would spool a lot faster, and don't get me wrong, it would, and that would be something nice, say, for if I was towing trailers. Right. But for what I use the truck, what application the truck's used for, I'd rather keep a big single on it.
Well, I think there's a lot of there's a lot there for the application. You know, I get a lot of guys on the phone. Hey, you know, like you just said, my one cousin says to go this route, my other cousin and I like this route, and I get guys who are like, oh, well, my buddy said that I can run a big S400 and I can do this and I can do that. Will the truck run? Yeah, the truck will run, but it's about spool up, and we talk about this time and time again. It's always about the reaction or the response, if you will, of how the turbo comes into play.
Exactly.
You know, coming from like my truck, you know, being it's a Cummins, a little different platform, but stock over an S400. By 1,200 RPM, the truck's in boost. You know, that thing's a dream to tow with. You know, this, like right now, how it just shifted and it's at 1,500 at no boost. This thing, I mean, you'd be working against itself to keep the trailer going.
Yeah.
You have to use manual mode and tap shift, which is an option, but again, you're working around the turbocharger. You're driving around it.
Right. On the highway, I do a lot of highway driving. Typically, the truck, when it's in 6-gear lockup, those RPMs will be super low, so the turbo obviously will be running no boost. That's the time where it's kind of like, all right, you know what I mean? It's, you know, a VVT in this situation or a VGT turbo in this situation would be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, just as reference, you know, we have another, you know, the second truck I'll be in here shortly, but we're at 1,600 RPM at 70 mile an hour. The truck's making 1 pound of boost. If I floor it, I'm still flooring it. It just got to 5 pounds. So from 70 to 75 mile an hour, a little bit of smoke behind us. I mean, it took a little bit of time to get the turbocharger in motion. These are the type of drivability scenarios that we're always talking about when we're talking about going to a bigger style turbocharger. There's different variable vanes as well. Just because you put a variable vane on a truck doesn't mean it's not going to be laggy. There's a lot that goes into it, in the dimensions and exhaust housings and turbine wheels and turbine profiles, the fin blade count, things of that nature. But again, like I said before, all things considered, I mean, the drives nice.
Yeah.
I'd like it to spool a little quicker, but that's just, I'm old. I'm getting old, so.
I mean, I can't complain with how it drives. Spooling could be an issue sometimes. Typically, like if I'm on the highway, let's say, and like I said, I'm in 6th gear lockup, and some guy pulls up next to me, I will throw it down in the tap shifter.
Tap it, go
yes,
down,
and I'll
right.
tap it down to 5th gear, top of 5th, and the turbo, it'll be right on top of the Charger, and all I got to do is just lay into it, and we're going. But
and like you said, you don't use this truck as a tow rig.
Yeah, no.
This is your daily driver. This is your play toy. I know that you've done, some drag strip stuff, some sled pull stuff, I'm sure, stuff like that. This isn't your, I'm going to hook up an RV and go cross country with the family or anything like that. But very cool. Well, Joe, I appreciate you taking the time letting me drive your truck. I'm going to lean on it one more time here.
That's fine.
do some tow haul settings on this and just get one nice roll, and then, guys, we're going to follow up with the next truck.
All right, so we're back from the ride along. You guys really did do a good job of kind of getting behind this truck and letting people know, what does it feel like, what does it sound like, what are the benefits. Chris, I was interested to hear you talking about some of the drawbacks of being in this truck, because I think 5 years ago you would have built this same truck.
And I mean, I mentioned that, and I'm a big advocate of that. Coming in, I've worked now here 5 years. Okay, 5 years ago I had straight pipe, 6-inch stack, 5-inch straight pipe exhaust systems, and then I realized that my mindset started to change when I built the 07 regular cab that had 2 mufflers, 4-inch exhaust. I mention in the second clip, right, that we're about to get into, I think it's an era and it's an age group. Joe, he's a younger kid. He's just turned 21. When I got into diesels, when I was 18, 17, I wanted to blow smoke. I wanted a loud truck. I wanted the most obnoxious turbo whistle you could ever have.
Yeah.
Well, now I don't want to be in that every day. I don't need that. So for me, I like the quietness.
Okay.
So it's an age thing, I said something to our boss over at Calibrated Power, Nick, Nick Pregnance.
I do know him, yeah.
Yeah, right. You know him a little bit. But I remember when he threw me the keys to his Denali, probably second week I was here, I was like, this thing ain't that cool. It's not even loud, man. You hear a little turbo, and he was like, settle down there, fella. Settle down there, fella. And, that was probably like the first taste, that little bit of like, damn, quiet, reliable, listen to some music. You don't have to have it, banging. Have the windows down in the middle of the summer and not hear that nasty-ass drone.
Yeah.
So I was sold, and over the years,
kind of crazy that here we are fast forward, and now, Joe, you got that exact chance. You got that opportunity to get into your first 500-plus horsepower emissions-equipped LML. We're going to kick over to that audio again here real shortly, but what is your overview of driving this Mike's is a 2012?
2013.
2013, I'm sorry, 2013 LML. It's not a Denali.
Nope, it's an LTZ. It's leather. It has a lot of the,
it's nice. It's almost the same.
Yep.
Right. It's almost the same.
Almost the same.
What were your feelings? What was the difference of driving your truck every day to jumping into this thing for the first time?
Well, the first thing that I noticed was right when I got into it, I guess you'd say, laying in the throttle, you hear nothing. And that's definitely a game changer, man. It's definitely a game changer. When I start my truck in the morning, super loud. That's all you hear. Getting in that thing, I couldn't even imagine. It's I feel like driving the truck listening to opera music. It's so nice in there. You know what I mean?
By the way, we did get in the truck and Mike had Adele playing.
He did.
I'm like, this guy.
Right. But no. The power of it. It's definitely something different. If you've never driven a truck that's emissions compliant, tuned, and everything, I definitely suggest it. You know what I mean? Like I said, the power. It's the same but different. It's very hard to explain. The way the power comes in on the truck that, with stock emissions, stock turbo, it's obviously going to be a lot different than mine, but I'm kind of leaning towards more of the side that I want to throw emissions equipment back on my truck, man. I mean, it's definitely nice driving it, being quiet. I could just change the exhaust for that, but
I think one thing to touch on is the power delivery is much different. You have a much bigger turbo on the truck. The emissions isn't really hindering the power delivery, depending on the strategy and tuning. Now,
well, that's a good point to bring up, Chris, because we are looking at two different trucks.
Yes.
They're not. We didn't take an emissions equipped truck and delete it and then drive them side by side, right? You have a turbo, you have a fuel system. This might have a lift pump on it at the most for a fuel system. It's stock fuel, stock turbo. It does have emissions equipment, so there's a difference in how aggressive you're going to make it. We're also not the ones who tuned your truck, where you're not running on a Duramax tuner tune. So there's a difference in the tuning to it. There's a lot of differences between these vehicles. And believe me, listeners, we know that. We do realize that.
I mean, I gave you the rebuttal when we first came into this.
Right, exactly. But, of like, well, what the fuck does that prove? And I'm like, I think what we wanted to do is we wanted to give Joe, somebody who has been passionate, who in his interview talked about deleting LMLs. We wanted to give you an opportunity to see what the other side of that fence looked like, to see what your other options were. It's not going to be as fast. It's not going to run the same quarter mile time. It's not going to hit the same horsepower number. But what did you spend? What are you willing to give up? What is the situation you're in? What are your options? We just want to bring up the fact that this other thing over there, being emissions equipped power, it can be really fucking cool. And that's what we're really hoping to see, is if it's something that you enjoyed. So I think now's a good time to kick over to that, and we'll see how much you enjoyed it.
Yep.
Me and Joe are in Mike Getschell's truck. Mike Getschell is a tech over at the shop at Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner. So we improvise. That's what I do on a daily basis. So, Joe, thank you for joining me on this next trip, drive, if you will.
No problem, man.
But what this is a 2013 2500 LTZ LML Duramax. Pretty much bone stock. It's got a lift pump and a tune. Fairly straightforward. Made about 540, 530 to the rear tire. It's got a cool set of 20x9, black fuel Maverick wheels on a 33-inch mud terrain tire. But other than that, stock intake, stock exhaust, nice and quiet. So that's the first thing I'm going to note here, guys, is it's nice and quiet. So, Joe, you've been driving the truck. We've been 10 minutes into this drive, kind of getting a feel for it. Now, the last truck that, we were just in was yours, which we don't have to recap because that's going to be in this clip prior. What's your first, feel? What's the first characteristics, first experience like?
Oh, man, it's super quiet, man. I don't know. I've always been a guy for loud trucks, but this may be changing me, man. The power level's nice. I love that I'm not hearing my, no drone. That's the first thing. There's no drone at all, and it's really starting to come after me, man. I'm really starting to like it. Truck drive's really smooth. This is my first compliant truck drive I've ever drove, so it's definitely a game changer for me. But no, man, I mean, I like it so far. It definitely drives smooth, and the power delivery is there,
One of the things that when I first came into our company, started working for Nick back in the beginning of 2014, one of the things that we always talked about, I came from the older Cummins stuff. I've had a couple Duramaxes in the past. I always liked loud, trucks were always cool. So I think there's a couple things that come into that, but I think that there's a demographic and an age group. When I was your age, it was always loud, obnoxious. I had hood stacks on trucks, vent stacks in trucks, 5-inch straight pipe exhaust, whatever. And back then, the diesel industry was a lot younger. It wasn't as matured as it is now. Not matured in a perspective of you're older and, I'm going to keep one truck one way or the other, but matured in the aspect of as technology has improved and as we've been able to set these trucks up, you don't need a 5-inch straight pipe exhaust to make 500 horsepower or 600 or 700 horse, but 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I mean, that was kind of the thing. That's what you did. You truck, you put a big exhaust you could on it right away. Now as technology is advanced, we're able to kind of do that with more of the stocker trucks. And granted, there's other moving parts, like this has. But the power delivery, I mean, granted, the turbochargers are a little different. And what I had mentioned prior was, this truck is a stock turbo truck. Your truck is an aftermarket turbo. It has one of our Generation 1 Stealth 67.7s. That's correct. So there is a little bit of difference in the spool up and the drivability perspective, but we're still within somewhat of the same power range. Yeah. Okay. And I want to point out a couple things with this. Stock LML turbo, 540-ish, 530 wheel horsepower limited. You can push it to 550-ish, but the turbocharger is out of its efficiency range. So one of the things that guys, when I'm on the phone with, my LB7, right, stock turbo made 570. Okay, well, your tuner is throwing and driving the hell out of that turbo to make that happen. It's all inefficient hot air. A couple months later, they have a motor failure, whatever that looks like, right? So there's, just because the turbo can support that or offer you that power doesn't mean that's necessarily the best. So the specific turbo for the power number still within about 60 to 70 horsepower between trucks.
Yep.
It's very common for guys to throw a bigger turbocharger on a stock injector, stock injection pump, or a little bit aftermarket injector pump in the LML world, and see the drivability, comparisons and differences. So, where your truck, in my opinion, you hook up to a trailer, you can tow with it, but you'd have to drive around some of the turbocharger. I mean, this is foolproof. It's stock OE stuff. Just the calibration, get in it, freaking go.
Yeah.
But like you said before, quiet. I don't have the drone out the exhaust, the tailpipe on my side to me. This is just a nice, quiet driving truck.
Yep.
Now, what we're gonna do here in a minute, guys, is Joe's been driving it. I'm gonna take the wheel. I'm gonna beat on this thing a little bit. We're gonna do a couple straight pulls, if you will. Maybe break in his truck and maybe do like a light launch. I don't know. It's not my truck, right?
Hey, whatever works, man.
It was donated. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, guys. So we'll catch up with you in a minute. We're gonna swap drivers and we'll go from there. All right, guys. We swapped seats. I am now behind the steering wheel of this 2013 LML, and what a treat! Just toe in, just getting it. That 40 to about 75, 80 mile an hour right there. It's smooth. I get a lot of guys, they'll call in, we'll do a setup, maybe it's a turbo, maybe it's just tuning. And they're like, yeah, the truck gets fast, but it's not like, oh my God. And you have to kind of explain to them, and we have the same thing with guys on the dyno. There's a difference between an aggressive or an abrupt power band versus a truck where it's just very smooth and consistent, and that's the drivability that is always talked about, or us over at Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner always talk about. You can make a power number, but to make that power number as drivable and as efficient throughout the whole RPM window as possible is something else, and that's where quality calibrations, R&D, testing, getting miles on these trucks, that's where all that comes into play. And this truck definitely is no slouch. This is a nice...
Hey, Chris, do you hear that? Because I don't hear nothing.
That's nice and quiet.
I don't hear nothing. It's growing on me, man.
I'm telling you, for myself, I came to terms with liking the quieter stuff. I think when I got into my mid-late 20s and had a kid, then it was a little different. I had my daughter in the back of my truck, and she's watching her DVDs or whatever. It's nice to be able to hear her if she says something or asks a question, not, hold on, hon, I got a 5-inch exhaust going out my Cummins, and those are droney sumbitches, so... We're gonna, as promised, just do a little light launch, nothing crazy. Mike's gonna be pissed.
Dude, once again though, dude, the
That thing got up and just went.
Dude, the power number is so damn smooth, Chris.
That was impressive. I was not expecting that. I was honestly not expecting that. And I really didn't do much of a launch. That was probably like 8-9 pounds. Nothing crazy. But I mean, I felt the tires slip a little bit and it went. I was in 4-wheel drive. But wow, is that impressive. So that was, I mean, it just goes to show, like I said, the idea between driving these two trucks, and we're going to kind of do a full recap, at the end of this drive along, but it's crazy to me how the technology, okay, and the mindset that any diesel owner has, myself included, years ago, remove the emissions, as long as you're going to make power, improve the drivability, it's not reliable, it's junk. Here's a truck right here that has, I'm going to read exact odometer reading, 157, 458 miles on the clock. The original DPF, the original EGR. We've serviced the truck, so we know the mechanical ability of it. Like I said, this is one of the techs that are at Calibrated Power. It's his personal truck. Again, Mike Getchell. Mike, thank you again for letting us borrow this. And 500 plus wheel horsepower. So what does that tell you? Is the emissions as unreliable as some would say? I'm going to have to push and say no. I think they are probably a little bit more reliable than some people think. But, both setups definitely have a place, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that either one is wrong or right. Again, we'll dive into this a little bit more, but, as a daily commuter and a fun truck and something to hook up a trailer on during the week and work with it, and, the weekend have a little bit of fun with the buddies. I mean, this thing serves a multi-purpose.
Yeah, I mean, back to what you were saying, there really isn't a need to delete the truck. Back then everyone was saying, you got the truck, everyone's like, oh, I want to make power, let's delete it. Well, there's no need to do that.
Like I said, there's a time and a place.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, as technology advances, and I think parts improve. Tuning companies, we're starting to see other tuning companies adopt some of this emissions on side of things. Something that Calibrated Power has been doing for years. That's where that's their heart and soul, right? That's what they invest all of their tuning efforts into. It is crazy to me that 4 or 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we would have not have been in this situation, driving a north of 500 wheel horsepower truck, tune only, bone stock otherwise, other than, like I said, a lift pump, and having a little bit of fun in the mix.
I agree with you, Chris. I agree with you. The power on this truck, man, it's making me want to go put an emissions compliant exhaust in my truck and the DPF back on it.
There you go. That was rolled on at 60 already. Now we're gonna stop. They're stopping up ahead, but this thing just gets up and goes. This thing really has like some of the nicest pickup I've honestly been in a truck.
Dude, Mike's got himself a sweet whip.
I know. I should have bought an LML. Damn.
Well, Joe, it sounded like you enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, man. It was. It's definitely different, dude. It's definitely something that I'm not used to, but it's not that I, you know what I mean? It's not that I hate it. I mean, it's definitely something nice. I enjoy driving that truck.
And we proved that the emissions can do boosted launches too on this street.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Mike, who owns that truck.
I gave him multiple
really
shout-outs.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
you got it, man.
No, so I think what is cool here is we did kind of achieve our goal, right? To give you a chance to see what the other thing was. You didn't have a truck where you said, "Am I going to delete it or not?" You went and you bought a truck and it had these mods on it. And you were like, "Cool," and you ran with it.
Yep.
And we get that. We understand some guys are going to end up with deleted trucks, and you're not in a place where it really matters, and that's fine, man. We're not here to convert atheists to believers, right? Like, all we're saying is that if you are that guy who's in that situation, who's weighing out what his options are, if your emissions equipment hasn't failed, what are you doing? What's the benefit? What are you getting? There is a sound difference. Right. Is that a bad thing? Like,
I think it just depends on the use of the truck and really what you're after. But I think, as Joe in the beginning of this episode, deleting the truck, that's the main focus. That's the main gain. That's what you're after. And I think that's a younger crowd, or, maybe that person that this is their first diesel, right?
Right.
And they're new to it, and that's what they're after. They've never experienced something like that before. So after you gain a little bit more experience and you're seasoned to it, so to speak, I do think that your mindset and your wants change a little bit.
Absolutely. So. Well said, Chris. Well, on that note, we want to give a final shout out to our sponsors, Calibrated Power, DuramaxTuner.com for making the show happen, Exergy Performance, and WC Fab. They are our actual full sponsors for the show, so we really rely on them, and we ask our listeners to rely on them as well. Give them a call, talk to them about the products that you're looking for, your fuel systems, your intakes, your air upgrades, anything you need along those lines. One of those two guys can help you out. Joe, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I just want to go ahead and appreciate and thank you guys for letting me on the show today. Thank you, Chris, for coming do a ride along with me and allowing me to drive Mike's truck with you guys. But no, it definitely changed your mindset on the way you look at things. Just like Chris said with the whole thing on, it's an age group thing. Younger kids want something louder. Once you get older, you want something quieter. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, you're still fucking young, so go ahead and enjoy it.
I agree with that.
Well, guys, this has been Paul.
And Chris Emke.
And Joe.
Thanks for listening.
The Diesel Performance Podcast is brought to you by Calibrated Power Solutions, home of DuramaxTuner.com. Calibrated Power develops emissions-equipped calibrations for a wide variety of diesel powertrains, including the Duramax, Cummins, Power Stroke, John Deere, Case, New Holland, and many more. For more information and great customer service, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920. That's 815-568-7920.
By the way, we did get in the truck and Mike had Adele playing.
He did.